Talk about Israel, which has now reopened the Kerem Shalom border crossing days after the critical aid entry point was closed due to Hamas's rocket attack. This comes as Israel has taken control of the Gazan side of the Rafah border crossing, and Palestinians have been forced to evacuate the southern city ahead of a possible full-scale military invasion. All of this raising concerns that the humanitarian crisis in the enclave could get worse. For more on this, we are joined by Tjada D'Oyen McKenna. She is the CEO of Mercy Corps, a humanitarian aid organization that provides support all over the world. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
What are you hearing from your team in Gaza right now, and in particular Rafah, where many people have been forced to evacuate?
Our team in Gaza is scared. They are tired. They're also, frankly, a bit depleted. There has been just lack of access to food and basic medical supplies. What we're hearing is that they are facing an impossible choice right now, and they recognize that some of them are lucky to be able to have that choice, right? So, for example, if you were elderly or disabled, the idea of leaving or evacuating further, it just may not be much of a choice at all. But for those who do have the choice, they're wondering, many of them had this really harrowing journey from the north or other parts into Rafah. They're wondering if they're going to face bombardment by staying, or if they leave, if they're going to be going through uninhabitable places, if they're going to face bombardment there. And there's a lot of rumors and speculation that the places that they're being asked to evacuate to are just not fit for human life. One of the areas that people are being asked to evacuate to, a 5-year-old girl died from heat in her tent in that area. So there are a lot of concerns and hesitations. In the meantime, medical aid is no longer available in Rafah as medical facilities have evacuated. One of my staff talked about bread costing 10 shekels last week, and now she went yesterday and it was up to 70 shekels. So just lots of uncertainty and fear. Frankly.
And now we know that Israel has taken control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing. There's another crossing that had been closed temporarily after being bombed by Hamas. I think it's reopened, but the Rafah crossing is really the main crossing. And as I understand it, it was already really difficult to get aid through. All the trucks have to be checked and checked over and over again before they can sort of venture on to the people who need them. So how concerned are you about getting aid in? What is it like trying to get aid into the enclave?
You hit it. It was almost impossible to get aid in before. Rafah is the humanitarian hub. So the little that was coming in, that was where we were able to distribute it and do things. All of that is completely uncertain now, right? We've had to close our warehouses. We have no idea about safe operations within that area. And it's devastating. This was already a devastating situation. There already were not enough supplies getting in, and now to have it completely halted for an undetermined period of time is quite frightening.
The Defense Department, as you know, says that the U.S. has finished the offshore construction of the temporary humanitarian pier system, but that it hasn't been moved into position to be anchored ashore yet. What's your reaction to that, and do you think that will help to bring more aid to Gaza?
No, that pier is pure humanitarian theater. The issue has not been an inability. The issue has been inspections and not allowing goods in. And then the issue has been safe distribution once they are in. A pier was wholly unnecessary. You have hundreds of trucks waiting behind these other borders every day that are being stalled for very arbitrary reasons.
So, as you know, Israel has claimed that Hamas militants are seizing aid that's meant for civilians. I think that's part of the reason why they also took over the Rafah side of the Rafah border crossing. Stumbling over my words. I want to know what your organization has seen, how your organization ensures that this aid does not wind up in the hands of Hamas.
Yeah, thank you. There have been very few confirmed reports of that happening. Even the U.S. acknowledges that there's very little confirmed reports of that. You have to know, we've been operating in Gaza since the 80s. Gaza was already the most difficult place in the world to operate before this in terms of restrictions of what was allowed in and the really, really strict protocols we have to undergo to make sure that nothing is getting into the wrong hands. You know, as you know, between U.S. Sanctions on terrorism and also just Israel's own very strict requirements around this, we've had to be just airtight in making sure that goods always get to the right places. So these are things that have always been in place in Gaza and that remain in place, and especially now with heightened scrutiny and heightened sensitivity to these issues, given the terror that has happened. This just isn't really a concern for those of us who have been operating there for a long time and who are accustomed to these protocols.
All right. Tjada D'Oyen McKenna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for bringing attention.